Hello everybody, my name is Jasmine Brown, and in this video I am going to be discussing the DMRB's CS465 Management of Post-Tension Concrete Bridges. If you haven't watched my previous video, CS was explained in my previous video, so that is Civil Engineering Inspection and Assessment document. It is to do with the inspection and assessment of post-tension concrete bridges. You can get this from the DMRB. If you type in DMRB CS465, it'll come up. But I just wanted to quickly show you this page. It gives a bit of background information about this particular standard. And if you don't know what a post-tension bridge is, I'm going to make a video in the future about what it is. Post-tension concrete bridges usually have a good service and have very few problems, but the thing is, the post-tension concrete bridges have tendons within them that are susceptible and vulnerable to corrosion and severe deterioration. And what makes it tricky is the fact that because the tendons are within the concrete, it's very hard to see it in visual inspections. The purpose of this whole document is to manage all of the post-tension bridges within the network by looking at each individual bridge and conducting desk studies and determining the condition of each bridge. And then at the end, it comes up with mitigations, recommendations in order to maintain the bridge. So I created a OneNote page just so we can discuss, so I don't miss any points. What is CS465 and why it exists? So the CS465 is a UK national standard from the DMRB for managing post-tension concrete bridges. It provides a structured process of risk review, risk assessment, and risk management, which I will get into later in this video, to ensure these bridges remain safe throughout their life. The standard states clearly, this document provides a process of risk review, risk assessment, and risk management for post-tension concrete bridges. Post-tension bridges can hide serious defects because tendons are buried inside ducts. This is why CS465 exists, to manage uncertainty, detect hidden deterioration, and prevent brittle failures. So, the core management cycle. We're going to go into depth about what this entails now: risk review, risk assessment, and risk management. So the risk review is a desk study on the bridge. So this is where we review historical records, drawings, previous PTSI reports, for example, post-tension special inspections, that's what that stands for, principal inspections, and general inspection reports, as well as load assessments. This is where we identify the critical sections and critical points, which I will get into later in this video. And then we decide whether the existing risk assessments needs updating. So that's because the condition of the bridge has deteriorated. I feel like I'm talking really fast, so I'm going to slow down a bit. So a new assessment may be required if they find out that the existing risk assessment needs updating, or alternatively, no changes are needed. The standard states, the risk review process shall include a review of historical records, identification of critical sections, and calculation of critical points. So that basically summarizes what the risk review section is. It is a desk study looking at existing information, as-built drawings, principal inspection reports, general inspection reports, previous PTSI reports, etc. Now the risk assessment section, which is part 2 of the process, risk review, risk assessment, and risk management. This is the main body of the document. It identifies hazards under 4 categories: vulnerable details and materials, condition hazards, historical hazards, and assessment hazards. I feel like my notes don't really do it justice, so I'm going to show you what it says in the DMRB, the CS465 document. So let me rewind from what I said in my notes. A hazard is anything that can adversely affect the condition of the structure's post-tensioning system and can be classified under the following headings: vulnerable details and materials, condition, history, and assessment. Typical hazards for post-tension concrete bridges are presented in these tables. So these tables, 4.7 to 10, are tables representing these categories. Vulnerable details and materials is one table, conditions one table, history is one table, and assessments one table. So let me just take you through those now so you can quickly see what type of things that they're talking about that are considered vulnerable, a vulnerable detail, what's considered a history detail hazard, and all that stuff. So vulnerable details and material hazards broken down into sections depending on what element we're looking at within the bridge. So there's segmental joints. I'm not going to read it all out to you because I'm sure you can read it. So segmental joints, other joints, post-tensioning system, So things like unlined ducts, for example, tendons grouped together. What you need to do is look at PTSIs, previous PTSIs, PIs, GIs, reports. Like basically, you need to look at the existing information on the bridge, and do a deep dive into the drawings and all the information available, just so you can determine what the defects are. The principal inspection is a good place to start because that's quite in depth. But anyway, let's carry on. So there's water management system, materials and durability, and construction. And then table 4.8 shows you the condition hazards, which is the next section of that list that I told you about. This section's to do with the hazards to do with the condition of the bridge. So that could include cracking, a poor water management system, you can see here, deflection, concrete defects like delamination, spalling, reinforcement corrosion, defects within the construction joints like leaks and stains, and bearings. And then there's also sections on other parts. It continues on like ducts, grouts, tendons, anchorages. And then history hazards are to do with the maintenance, operation, environment, and inspection and investigation. And you can see here that's more like to do with the maintenance of the bridge, anything to do with the environment like the use of de-icing salts, which is very common on bridges. And then the assessment. So this is the more technical side. So it's to do with structure, like for example, the structure has not been assessed for current condition, assessment standards, or operational loading. Structure has not been assessed for sensitivity to loss of pre-stress, for example, and then so on. And then for each hazard identified within each category that I mentioned, we need to detail what the risk event will be, the likelihood of the risk event occurring, the consequences of the risk event occurring, the hazard risk level, and the recommended risk management measures. So at the end of each hazard, you need to basically identify what mitigations we're going to be doing to try and fix that situation, that risk event from ever happening. That each hazard has a likelihood of it happening from certain to low, and then the consequence of that particular hazard, and then the consequence of that hazard could be catastrophic, so that would be high consequence, or low if it's just something small. And then you create a hazard risk level using this table here with the consequence and likelihood, and then it comes up with the hazard risk level right here. So now we are on the third part, which is the risk management plan. So the risk management plan shall record the risk management measures identified in the risk assessment. So the previous step after each hazard has been identified and a risk management measure has been proposed for each hazard, then it shall be recorded in the risk management plan. And then these risk management measures, if there are any identical ones, then the highest risk level should be presented in the risk management plan. And then each risk management measure is categorized in one of three categories. So that could be an inspection, an assessment, or remediation. Okay, so I'm going to end the video here, and then in the next video I'm going to be talking about technical plans and PTSI, so post-tension special inspection or investigation, and I hope to see you guys in that video. Speak soon. Bye now.